Can luxury be considered fast fashion? You had a lot to say. Hello, welcome back to Classics with a Quirk, where I talk about contemporary and luxury designer items and brands with a touch of silliness. If this is the kind of content that you find interesting, please do like this video and subscribe for more of it. Thank you. A little while ago, I put out a video about whether or not I thought that luxury could sometimes be considered fast fashion. In the video, I discussed a couple of different aspects of what fast fashion means and whether or not luxury could be considered it based on the way of the world as it is today. I asked my viewers to weigh in with their thoughts on the topic, and so many of you left such excellent commentary that I wanted to continue the conversation. In this video, I'm going to be sharing the comments left on the previous video and discussing things a little bit further. As always, I'd love for you to continue to weigh in on the topic and continue the conversation in the comments down below, and I hope that you enjoy this video. I did ask in a poll on YouTube whether or not this was something that you'd be interested in, and overwhelmingly the answer was yes. They were looking for a follow-up response, so that's why I'm doing it. If you don't want to watch this video, obviously nobody's making you, and if you disagree with this topic, you're free to leave a comment down below as well. And that's what this is about. This is about a conversation. All I ask is that you be kind. Most of these comments were incredibly long, detailed, and thoughtful, and I'm going to be skimming them a little bit as I read them out loud perhaps, but I will leave the entire comment on the screen for you so you can kind of see the entirety of it. I do apologize, by the way, if I mess up a username. I'm trying my best here. First of all, Onto A said, "I love your take on this. I think that the it bag phenomenon and the celebrities of the early aughts were the precursors for the influencer model of today. Paris, Britney, Lindsay, etc. wore things and those products were instantly catapulted to the limelight. But even then, the reach of those celebrities was limited to those who actively wanted to see them and their fashion. After social media really took off, you could have had an exponential reach and, more importantly, not have to pay the person wearing the items. The cost of gifting 10 bags to the top influencers who reach millions is way cheaper than paying actress X to show up your bag." I think that is an excellent point, and I'm going to say this a lot, like a lot of these were excellent points. Celebrities have been wearing it bags and it fashion for generations, like well before the 90s, well before the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. We had Audrey Hepburn made the Speedy 25 famous. That was way before the 90s, of course. Grace Kelly made the Kelly bag famous way before the 90s, but their reach was a lot smaller. Social media has made the world incredibly flat, and it also has made the ability for information to spread very, very quickly. So when we had a fashion icon or a fashion item be incredibly popular in the 40s, 50s, 60s, you had the item be sensationalized perhaps, and people would be making that item and sharing it, but you probably didn't have 70 items being shared at the same time, being made rapidly and then discarded in kind of the same way that fast fashion and in some cases luxury does today. Onto A continues, "I also believe this goes hand in hand with the fast fashion clothing market in general. If LV, Gucci, and Chanel come out with a collection for spring-summer and Zara can knock it off in a week, and in some cases they're launching the dupes before the real pieces even make it to the stores, then the luxury brands lose the power of driving the narrative. The luxury brand in turn needs to launch more collections to stay ahead of the copies, and you have this vicious cycle we are currently caught up in. That's why luxury has a fast fashion feeling now. The dog is chasing its own tail. That is also why the quality of luxury pieces have declined. Honestly, I feel the consumers are growing tired of it. There's only so much money the average person can spend on these goods, and even if you buy to resell, most of the times you lose money. I see a trend towards more intentional, thoughtful buying from a large portion of the market as a backlash to the roller coaster we've been on the last few years." I'm going to keep repeating excellent points, so I'm going to try to think of different vocabulary, but that is such a great point that Zara, fast fashion brands, can dupe luxury pieces at an incredibly fast pace this time. Once an item design is leaked, you've got a Zara dupe within the next day sometimes, or even before the item itself, the luxury piece, has made it to the floor because people are creating fast fashion super quickly. So even if a luxury item perhaps can't be considered fast fashion, and you know, most luxury items, I would say, aren't necessarily fast fashion in themselves because, again, these pieces do take time to create, are often thoughtfully created, but fast fashion is often driven by luxury. So maybe luxury isn't necessarily considered fast fashion in a lot of cases, but they do contribute to fast fashion in some way because you've got all these other labels like fast fashion labels duping it as fast as they possibly can and then discarding that when the next Louis Vuitton piece comes out. It's just something to consider. It's very interesting. That's such a great comment, and one that I didn't even think about mentioning. Stephanie A. also kind of continues on that thought, where I do believe luxury fashion is partaking in fast fashion. It's often overpriced, and when that happens, it ends up in the sale outlet or sold at discounts to their employees. Collections come out left and right. Certain items become trend items for only a season or two, and then the next it item or trend comes and people are scrambling to get a hold of it and let go of their piece from the last season. I feel people are so reliant on reselling their bags, which is fair because you can almost always make your money back or at least close to it, but there is an overfull inventory with resellers too. Some bags I've been eyeing on Fashion File have been available for over 3 months now, and I think it goes to show how collections are being curated on a short-term rather than long-term use. But of course, this is only applicable to a certain amount of people. There are many who curate their collections to cherish for a lifetime or only letting go when they no longer feel fulfilled by it. I've noticed that I'm guilty of panic buying when there is a price increase coming, but I've been holding myself back from buying and would rather pay the 10 to 20% increase and have that purchase I'm 100% satisfied with and will put to good use. Although I do understand it might not be possible for everyone to do, especially if the bag is just in your range before the increase. Lots of factors that go into this topic, and unfortunately in this industry it's probably not a priority for most. Sorry for the ramble. Do not worry about the ramble. I really appreciate your comment, and I really like the continuation of this discussion because it's interesting. Stephanie A says something in contradiction to Anta. Stephanie A says that people can almost always make their money back, whereas Anta A says that it's much more likely to lose money. And that depends on a couple of different factors, from where you sell it to what you're selling. And I made a few videos about how I don't believe that luxury bags are investments in a monetary way, but there is argument that some luxury items are. It depends on what it is, it depends on how you're selling it, depends on who you're selling it to. But Stephanie's other point is that luxury items, when they don't sell out, often do end up on sale outlet or sold at a discount. LV doesn't do sales. Chanel doesn't have outlets. Gucci doesn't do discounts. But it is true that for some lesser luxury brands, which is kind of weird to say, like still luxury but not upper echelon luxury, I suppose. Balenciaga, Bottega Veneta, Balmain, a lot of these luxury items do end up in the sale. Versace, they are sold at a discount because they can't be sold full price. And once those items can't be sold full price, they're sold on sale, and then there is excess stock. What happens to that stock? It does, in some places, contribute to waste. I've actually made a couple of vlogs where I've shown you items, luxury goods that I found at TJ Maxx, like fancy TJ Maxx. And I once had a video, I'll link it because it's kind of funny, where I found so much Gucci. And Gucci generally doesn't go on sale. I think there are actually like contracts in place for third-party resellers where Gucci cannot be sold on sale at like Farfetch and other places. But if a Gucci bag ends up at TJ Maxx for a discount, then it clearly wasn't being sold full price. It had to go somewhere. And then if that bag doesn't sell at TJ Maxx, what happens to it? Where does it go? Does it get destroyed? Does it end up in the garbage? Does an employee take it home? Like, I don't know. I don't know where some of these items end up going. And the thing is that there's always excess stock. There's always excess stock. Even for limited run pieces, there is always going to be extra that didn't sell, unless they made like 3 and all 3 sold. They have to make a certain amount of items. And Dale and Connor recently had a collaboration video, I think, where they discussed this a little bit. I'll try to find it and link it. I think they linked this, like my last luxury video, because they disagreed with me, and I'm actually going to mention Dale's comment in a minute because it's a great one. But they talked about the fact that luxury brands are producing seasons and styles months, if not years, in advance. Like they're always several seasons ahead, and that's partially because they have to create the items for the trends that they are themselves making. So they are ahead, they're creating more stock because they don't necessarily know how much stock they need, which sometimes means that they're going to sell out of things, but often means they have more. I don't currently work for Louis Vuitton or Chanel. I don't know what they do with their excess stock. A Heated Mess once had a video, I also will try to find it and link it, where she discussed that LV doesn't burn bags because it would be kind of silly for them to do so. And she listed several reasons. She used to work for LV, so she has a great insight into how that operation works. And again, I will link that video for you. It does come down to sometimes how these items are treated after they're created. And so I want to give you Dale's comment next. Because again, like, she completely disagrees with me, kindly, which I do appreciate, but I want to share it because she makes some good points too, and she also does talk about something that is very important. So Dale says, So I have to say I tend to sit on the opposing side of this debate for a few reasons. Mainly, I think the term luxury minimalist is an oxymoron, which I think is funny and honestly a little bit true myself. If we just bought what we needed, there are plenty of more responsible, practical, and cost-effective options out there. Very true. Luxury in essence is luxury, not necessity, completely frivolous and unnecessary. We buy these items because we like them, not because we need them in any way, shape, or form. Dale continues, fast fashion is generally low-cost bulk, manufactured items inspired by catwalks and then on a sales rack after the season has passed. Now you'll notice that Dale does talk about the fact that, just like Stephanie said, fast fashion is often influenced by luxury. Luxury products may be mass-produced at low cost, I don't know, but they aren't cheap alternatives tossed to the op shop after the season has passed or put on the sales rack, for the most part. They are the catwalk pieces. They tend to constantly be recycled through resale rather than put into waste. Which, yes, that's definitely true. People will resell luxury items before throwing them out. They do not throw items out for the most part. They'll sell them on and they'll sell them on and they'll sell them on. And even the most trashed out, like I've seen bags that are moldy, I've seen bags that are ripped, I've seen corners that are destroyed, still being sold on eBay or other third-party websites for decent sums. Not for the same thousands and thousands of dollars they might have sold retail, but still for decent amounts. Dale continues, as far as waste is concerned though, for anything not sold, what happens to it? Increased production, increased byproducts of dyeing leathers and fabrics, fabric waste and cut-offs, etc. And that's the point that I did make before, which yes, the more production you have of anything, the more waste is generated from the production. You are going to have dye runoff. You are going to have excess cuts and pieces. You are going to have stock that might not be created to the quality that is supposed to be sold, and so it can't be sold. If Louis Vuitton creates a piece, if an artisan creates a piece or has material that does not meet Louis Vuitton standards, it shouldn't be sold. And then if it is not sold and they don't have sales, where is the defective product going? Dale continues, there is the demand curve, possibly skewed the last 2 years, but prices are rising, and as you note, demand has definitely increased. The luxury consumer has changed from the 80s and aughts, where today a teenager in a modern family knows these brands and has a favorite and a wish list. And absolutely, demand for luxury items has increased. That there's no denying that. People want luxury, and just like Dale said, a 13-year-old is going to have a luxury wish list sometimes. It is also true that luxury demand is not necessarily being met. Some luxury brands are not creating the amount that demand has demanded. Like Chanel, for instance, has released statements that says they're not going to be increasing bag production to meet demand. They're going to just make the same amount of bags they always plan to make, and then if they run out, they run out. But it does still go in line with the fact that there are things that are being made that can't be sold. There are still being increased collections, increased colors, increased styles that are being made to, again, meet demand, because consumers want stuff that is different. And if you've got like a Chanel classic flap in black with gold hardware, it's the same Chanel classic flap that's been on the market for several years. They're going to want different colors. They're going to want slightly different finishes. They're going to want different seasonal styles at least. And that is where increased production sometimes does come in. Mary from Lumi Level Up, she has her own YouTube channel where she talks about being a luxury lover with an average income and trying to be more mindful with her money. So I suggest checking her out. She's a good time. Says, I question myself a few times if there are really more collection drops at Louis Vuitton nowadays, or if I'm just more aware of it now than I have been a few years ago. And it feels like so much more to me. But maybe that is simply because there's more information about new collections. I don't know. Maybe it's both, that there are more collections and there's also more information. And so it just feels like so much more. But it really does feel like Louis Vuitton puts out a new thing all the time, like every week. I feel like I'm seeing sneak peeks of new collections or new styles or new designs very, very often. You know, the Valentine's Day collection released in January, and right before that was the denim, and before that was the speedy thing. And I feel like there's going to be another collection in another day. And I don't know, is it more really? Or is it just the media is saturated by it and so I see it a lot? And I do want to just mention that with what Dale said about luxury minimalism, sometimes I see people talk about luxury minimalism in a way that feels very judgmental to people who are not minimalists or maximalists, because it does kind of sometimes make me think of somebody sitting on a hill and like looking down at the people who buy too much frivolous stuff or buy in excess in the opinion of the person who's sitting on the hill. Different people want different things and require different things and can afford different things or have space for different things. And I do think that there's room for everybody to indulge in luxury. And if having 2 bags makes one person thoroughly satisfied and having 20 bags makes another person thoroughly satisfied, I think there's room for both. The idea of luxury minimalism certainly has a place. You do want luxury, but you don't want a lot of it. You want to be satisfied with a certain amount, and that's great and fine. But I do think that sometimes the term can be used in a way that can be judgmental for people that aren't minimalists in that capacity. And I think that there's certainly room for people who only want 1 or 2 luxury bags, and that's great if that satisfies you. And then there are people who are collectors who like to have more than that or want to own more than that because they appreciate it. I'd love to hear your opinions about that too. I'd be happy to make an entire video on just that subject also. But getting back to fast fashion, because I have dovetailed a little bit, I do want to talk now about Sherry M, who says, I think social media really contributes to this concept. I've fallen victim to many of the current trends only to get tired of many items after only a couple months. Your video has prompted me to be more mindful of my purchases, to really think about what I want, not just what's popular in high demand. First of all, thank you. I'm really happy to see that you resonated with the video, and it's super cool to think that I've influenced you in some way. I guess influenced you, inspired you, prompted you to be a little bit more mindful with your purchases, because I do think that there's always room for that. I think that there's always room for considering what you buy before you buy it, even if you want to buy 37 things. There's nothing wrong with buying 37 things, really, but it's nice to do it with some thoughtfulness, because then you know that you're buying stuff that you truly want, as opposed to maybe being influenced by hype and then buying something and not only owning something that you don't need to own, but perhaps making a costly mistake, spending money you didn't need or want to spend. SR Style, who's watched several of my videos now, and I appreciate every time they comment, says, my luxury collection had been going since I was 55, and in February I will be 62. I am guilty of buying too much, as I don't use many of my items, but I still want to keep them. First of all, it's super cool that, they started collecting at 55 and have been collecting now for 7 years. Like, that's awesome, and I think that that's a really good way to make a collection. Even if you have a lot of things, you've acquired a lot of things over a period of 7 years. That does give you a lot of time to be thoughtful about your purchases. And okay, maybe you don't use the items, but you've acquired them over 7 years, and you probably enjoy your items even if you don't use them. I think that's part of my point in the difference between fast fashion and not fast fashion. Like, even if you buy a $10 top from Target and that top is technically fast fashion, if you use that top and own that top and wear that top for 3 years, it's created in the way that fast fashion is created, which is harmful, but you're not adding to what fast fashion can add to in terms of the quick consumption and production, which is one of the other reasons why fast fashion is harmful. Fast fashion is harmful because it harms the people creating the item for incredibly low wages. It harms the environment for needing to pull so many resources into the creation of the item. And then it harms the environment again when you inevitably throw the item out, and that contributes to waste. So, there's the human aspect, there's the production aspect, and then there's the aspect of the waste in the end. But if you buy an item and then wear it for 3 years, you're not contributing to the waste in the same way someone who buys an item and then discards it after a month contributes to it. And again, as I said before, probably nobody's buying a luxury item and then throwing it out after a month. If they get sick of it, they might be reselling it after a month and putting it back into the system. But if they bought the luxury item, if they sell the item and then buy another item a month or a week or a day later, they're still creating the demand for the item's creation. I hope that makes sense. I hope that I'm properly explaining what my thought process is on how some luxury items can sometimes be considered fast fashion, not only in how they are treated by the consumer, but how the consumer who recycles through their items very often, especially new items, creates this a demand that then increases production, which contributes to the waste, which is probably the problem with fast fashion. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna just continue on with the comments because some of them are way more eloquent than I am currently being. So Kate Swan says, I'm glad you decided to talk about this. I recently downsized my collection because I only wanted to have pieces that I truly love and felt like I was getting into a cycle of endless collecting. However, I've been thinking, and I do like trying new things that I'm interested in, so I'm okay with branching out and trying a few trend pieces. And if they work out, great, and if I end up selling them, that's okay too. It's nice to find some balance. Now, Kate really touched on a lot of things that I was trying to get at in sort of a much better way than I probably did in terms of my rambling. It is a matter of balance. You can't always know for something if it's going to work for you until you try it. And if you love a trend piece, that's great. If it doesn't work out for you, that's also sometimes fine. It sometimes comes down to the consumption and knowing what you're consuming. Like for me, I said this too, like I made a wish list video at the beginning of this year and I had 13 things on that wish list. So if I get every single thing on that list, at the end of the year, I'm gonna have 13 new things. And some of them might not even work for me, but at least they were 13 purchases that I did think about. Will I make impulse buys? Probably. In fact, I kind of already have, like I did. There's something coming up, maybe. But sometimes you fall in love with something in the moment, and it goes back to just finding that balance of, okay, I did buy this thing that I love, and it was an impulse buy. I wasn't expecting it, but I loved it, so I purchased it. And maybe that will make me more thoughtful about the next thing that I buy that I might pass up or I might consider for a different reason. Balance is key. Anna said, great job in this video, so eloquently and carefully presented. Thank you. I didn't feel like it, but I appreciate it. I really do. I try to be as eloquent as possible, but that can be really hard sometimes, especially when I'm just trying to get my thoughts out and hope that I don't sound callous in what I'm saying. Like I don't want somebody to watch my video and feel bad because they think that they're making mistakes or making bad choices and I'm pointing out like you're making bad choices. Like I really don't want that to be what I sound like. I mostly just want to have like conversations and discuss this because I think it's interesting to consider things from all angles. As a luxury lover, as a consumer of incredibly frivolous things, I do like just discussing another aspect of these things that I enjoy. And yeah, so thank you. I appreciate the comment. And they go on to saying, I also think that COVID did a number on us and made it worse as people are looking for an escape, and online shopping is a quick fix to help you feel better. And I really do agree with that about how what has been going on has had a huge impact on the fashion industry in general, fast or otherwise. I do think that there's definitely an escapist element to it. And sometimes you just want something nice, and a lot of things are going on and things are very stressful and you just want something nice. You just want to escape into unboxing something fun, wearing something pretty, or owning something that makes you happy, and that's allowed. It's been an incredibly stressful time for everybody. In whatever way it's been stressful for you, it's been stressful, and different people have their own different burdens. And I can't say one person's burden is more or less than another person's because we don't know all the facts. And if somebody wants to buy themselves a hot chocolate or a luxury handbag as a treat, sometimes you do what you can in order to keep going. And occasionally that means buying something that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise, or taking the chance on a piece that might have been a little bit more trendy than you usually go for, or buying something that's a little bit more expensive than you normally do, or taking the plunge and finally getting the dream bag that you've always thought about but never really considered actually getting. It's a lot, and I'm gonna move on to the next comment. Elena Benitez has kind of a different point, where she says it used to be that Chanel and LV, etc. were for the very rich. You know, the types that would spend $300,000 a month at Neiman's and wouldn't be caught dead with last season's wares. Entered the internet. Now people discover the brands and the brands discovered them. Middle class entered the world and the brands loved it. It has become an out-of-control treadmill for some. I actually started buying luxury bags after traveling the world, getting the jewelry pieces I want, getting luxury shoes, and then purses. A few classics, only waiting for COVID to go away to keep exploring the world with better bags hanging from my arm. To each its own, but luxury has now become, for many, financially dangerous. I do think it's really interesting that Elena brought up the middle class versus the incredibly wealthy, because there is a divide often in our minds between the middle class and the wealthy, because I do think that it is very true that luxury brands are now marketing for the middle class in a way they used to not be. And by that I mean who carries their items, like the influencer gifting movement or the celebrity movement, you know, the celebrity gifting movement of the early aughts, the 90s and the 2000s. We're targeting younger people. younger people that probably didn't have like an incredible amount of money. They were not targeting the younger wealthy people. They were targeting all younger people. If, you know, Lindsay Lohan wears a Louis Vuitton bag to the Teen Choice Awards, the teens are the ones that are consuming that content and looking at her bag. It's not the wealthier adults that have all the money. Now, these teens might come from wealthy families and have the money to burn or the allowance to throw at the Louis Vuitton, but sometimes that's not what is happening. Sometimes it's just implanting in their brain for as they grow up, oh, I really like that. I really like that bag. I really like that brand. That's something to aspire to. And that's something to aspire to even as a middle-class consumer. I just as a question, like how many of you were introduced to luxury before you were able to purchase luxury? I'm very curious because I see a lot of luxury YouTubers even talk about how they were interested in this bag as a younger person and then aspired to own it when they were older. I definitely remember seeing a video where Sophie Choquette talks about the fact that she was interested in Dior, for instance, when she was younger. I think she had a friend who had a sister who wore designer, and they were always asking to buy her those things. And obviously the sister was like, absolutely not, your children, keep away from my designer goods. And so Sophie had that in her brain as she grew up that she did at some point want to afford designer. And then she worked hard and then she was able to afford designer. And I do think that Sophie probably considers herself in the wealthy class now, but she wasn't always. Same with Cassie Thorpe. Cassie has mentioned that she had a dream bag when she was younger. I think it was the Dior saddlebag, but don't quote me on that, and I apologize if I've gotten it wrong. But she saw the Dior saddlebag when she was unable to afford it, and then that was like the dream bag that she purchased when it re-released. It was like, that one, I'm getting it right now. And I see that a lot. In fact, I see a lot of people who were influenced by like Sex and the City. When that came out, like a lot of people watched Sex and the City, and that was one of their first big introductions to like luxury bag, like to Fendi, to Dior, to Chanel. They watched a show and saw it before the huge social media age that it is today. But those people then grew up to be the people who are currently buying luxury. I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to think about. It's an interesting thought. Who is buying luxury? Like who's buying the most of the current luxury pieces, and who the brands are marketing towards, like who they're really selling to, even if they don't want to admit that they're selling to them. You know what I mean? So thank you for your comment, Elena. Jason, who is a frequent watcher and commenter on my videos, so I appreciate you. Hi, thank you for your comment here, says, I've always wanted to know how much Chanel and LV boxes and ribbons, packaging, etc. all actually costs, and how much of it is involved in the customer's actual purchase. So I know for a fact that there are scores of luxury lovers who talk about the luxury boutique experience as being part of the reason they buy luxury. And packaging is part of that. And I am definitely someone who will admit to that too. In fact, I've expressed dissatisfaction in sometimes not getting all the packaging or not getting the packaging I was hoping for. That's just true. It's part of the luxury experience. Now, I don't buy things only for the packaging, but I know that there are plenty of people who do. Like, I know that Cindy from A Heated Mess releases like videos on like the cheapest thing to buy at Dior so you can get like the holiday packaging. Like she does videos like that, and power to her, I guess. Like she buys the Dior notebooks, or has talked about how the Dior notebooks are some of the least expensive things you can get to still get the Dior holiday packaging. And there are so many videos on YouTube where people who like actively admit, happily talk about the fact that they bought the thing just for the packaging. So it certainly has something to do with purchases. I don't think that a person is going to buy a $5,000 handbag for the packaging, but I definitely think that there are plenty of people who will buy lesser expensive items like $100, $200, $300 items for packaging to get like the unique, interesting packaging or the special edition packaging or something. I definitely think that has a lot to do with it. I know for a fact that I am influenced by pretty packaging, and sometimes I will wait to buy something until it is in special packaging season. Like for instance, if I want to buy something and it's October, I might wait till like November when the holiday packaging is released to actually make the purchase so I get the special packaging. But I personally don't buy things just for the packaging, and in fact, like that's one of the reasons why I'm totally fine with buying pre-loved, that it doesn't come with all the packaging if it's pre-loved. I do expect to get all the packaging by buying something new, but pre-loved, it matters to me personally a little less. But I know plenty of people who will only buy pre-loved if it's full set. It comes with all the packaging too, and that's just definitely something that I see a lot. Samantha says, I think luxury has turned into fast fashion due to social media. Luxury brands that didn't need too much help before are suddenly gifting influencers stuff to show off, but the quality of said stuff is trash as compared to the vintage stuff. Also, other influencers buy and secretly return merch, yet the demand for said product has already been built. I think it was Louis Vuitton that made some TikTok creator an ambassador, but that was a mistake in my opinion. I don't know about TikTok at all. I do not TikTok. I have friends who TikTok, but I do not know much about the TikTok. But Louis Vuitton making a TikTok creator and ambassador doesn't surprise me. Louis Vuitton has really been one of the forefront creator brands. That was the sentence. They've been kind of on top of really leading influencer gifting and influencer campaigns. I think that a lot of brands like kind of followed in Louis Vuitton's footsteps in terms of like gifting influencers, things to spread the love of the thing or the want or the frenzy of the thing. And it really is interesting how the rise of social media has changed things in not just how we see the world, but how we consume fashion. Like it definitely has had a huge impact. I remember reading actually a while back when the Hermes boom happened on social media. It was I think it was 2019 or 2020 that Hermes had this huge sudden exponential boom of interest on YouTube, on Instagram. All these people were unboxing Hermes Birkins all of a sudden. They had never experienced that type of insane popularity before, and Hermes was astonished. They were thoroughly unprepared. Statements were released by people who worked for Hermes how thoroughly unprepared Hermes was for this sudden influx of extra attention, because Hermes, is this elite brand, and they built themselves to be this elite brand. They sell to loyal clients who have been sometimes buying for decades. And Hermes really is a brand that doesn't promote. They don't do pretty much any promoting. They certainly don't gift influencers anything. I think they gift Jane Birkin one Birkin a year, and I believe she donates it to charity. She spiffs it up or something, and she does usually auction it off to charity, which is super cool. She's a very interesting lady. But Hermes themselves, for the most part, doesn't really promote themselves or advertise. It's a lot of word of mouth. And so the word of mouth, there was a lot more of it suddenly, and they didn't know what to do. So the amount of people that were suddenly showing up in boutiques to try to get a bag was way more than usual, which was what they weren't expecting. They still had the same amount of bags, but the amount of people now asking for them and sort of becoming more in competition with the people who were already part of the Hermes journey experience really took off. Sometimes the demand affects the brands themselves and their own production. And I believe even Hermes has a FAQ on their website, no, you can't just buy a box. You can't just buy an orange box. Stop asking, something like that. It's just, it's interesting to see how different aspects of social media and different brands are affected by it. There are quite a few luxury brands that don't have the amount of public social media exposure that others do now. Moina, for instance. Not very many people talking about Moina on YouTube. I don't know why. They're beautiful bags. They have an incredible rich history. Their heritage goes back a long time too, just like Hermes, just like Louis Vuitton. But people don't really talk about Moina just because. Delvaux, people aren't really talking about Delvaux. Fleur Lepage, not a lot of people talking about Fleur Lepage. Fleur Lepage has been around since I think the 1700s, but you don't hear about them. So, it is very interesting to see what brands have been driven to exposure and then their response to that. And also what brands try to get as much exposure as possible. And sometimes you wonder a little bit why? Why does Louis Vuitton need to gift influencers their bags? Are they not going to be popular on their own? Probably. It's Louis Vuitton. They have a huge following, a huge fan base. So why do they feel the need to create more of it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. Kathy McConda, who also has her own YouTube channel, which I just recently discovered, and she's also great, I would suggest checking her out, says, I love this video. I'm also a YouTuber who makes videos about luxury, and the rate of acquisition for many of my favorite influencers really turned me off this last year. Many of their luxury purchasers are now on their worst buys for 2021 videos, so I feel that it may just be requiring luxury goods for content. I intend to make a video about this topic, and I look forward to seeing it, Kathy. Thanks for making some excellent points and reminding us that mindful consumption is best. I do look forward to watching her video. I do recommend checking her out. As I said, she is very well spoken and has a lot of good talking points in terms of just how she discusses and thinks about luxury. She actually made her own video about luxury minimalism, which I will link that one in the description box. And she had some really good points in relation to how luxury sometimes feels a little bit skewed in how we consume it. I believe she did a slight response to a video made by Person Flink, who had a Hermes experience a while back and made a video about it. And I didn't do my own response to it because I didn't feel it was necessary to add my voice to the crowd of people who were doing their own responding. But Kathy mentioned in her video on luxury minimalism that it feels sometimes like consumers have lost sight of what luxury should be, which is fun, and I agree with that. I think luxury should be fun and enjoyable, things that we like, as opposed to things that you just feel the need to consume, and it's almost like work. And yeah, luxury shouldn't be work. Luxury shouldn't be work to consume it. It should be fun and you should enjoy what you have, and it shouldn't make you feel bad, or you shouldn't be making other people feel bad in your process to acquire the things that you want. That isn't to say that some luxury brands don't try to make it work. I mean, there's the Hermes journey, for instance, which is a process to get a dream bag for some people, and that's kind of a little bit of what Kathy was talking about. It's harder and harder to get items from Chanel or trend pieces from Louis Vuitton or even items from Dior. Brands are making it, in some cases, more difficult to acquire sought-after pieces, or they're not producing as much, and sometimes that's good because it's producing less stuff, which means less waste. Awesome. But it does sometimes create a hype and a frenzy, which can drive up the need for the item. And also that affects resale sometimes. Like resellers will snap up all the pieces and then sell them for premium pricing profit. And that's also not super fun because they take away from people who actually want to just buy the item from the boutique. And that's a different topic for a different video. If you're interested in me talking about resellers, I would be happy to. Leave a comment down below and let me know, but it is something that does happen. I do have one last comment to share, and that is from Train Girl Megan, who has, again, her own YouTube channel. She is delightful. I would recommend her. She says, I would be fascinated to go back in time to see Grace Kelly wearing Hermes and Audrey Hepburn wearing Louis Vuitton. It would be interesting to see how that information was treated by the general public. Women read magazines then and follow fashion trends driven by the stars, but I'm guessing that it was done very differently. Perhaps it's just that more people can afford/prioritize luxury goods, and some people do put it on credit. I know without any doubt that I buy way more because I look at social media. I do my best to keep it balanced, but I can't even really know what I would do if I wasn't under the influence of everything around me. I think this is an excellent comment to end on because it really ties neatly into something that we talked about at the beginning of the video, which is that we've seen celebrities, icons, fashion icons, movie stars, debutantes, princesses wear luxury for decades, generations, centuries actually even. So the idea of this fashion item being popular and being desired by the more typical folk, the normal people, as opposed to, the celebrity, is not new. It isn't new. It's been around for such a long time. I myself consumed a lot of older media growing up, like books and movies and stuff, and absolutely they were like the ingenues that everybody idolized who had these luxury items. Audrey Hepburn, for instance, of course. She made the Louis Vuitton Speedy famous. It's been going on forever. It's for free forever. Even going back to more historically, before we had movies to even think about, we had people who knew that Paris was one of the fashion centers of the world. They would take pictures, and I don't mean take pictures with a camera, I mean sketches and paintings of the current styles, like ladies' fashion, and then take them to other parts of Europe, to America even, by boat. They'd take these things by boat, and then people would look at these pictures and then try to mimic those fashion styles. We've been doing it historically forever. It's just that our ability to create things and consume things has increased exponentially too. When somebody used to be waiting days or weeks for a new gown to be made, instead you have fast fashion. You can go in and buy the Shein or the Zara dupe today, tomorrow, yesterday. The consumption is different. But that's all the comments I think I'm going to highlight today. This video is already over an hour long, and I'm going to try to edit it down as much as I can and maybe keep my own ramblings to a minimum. But if you did, again, get all the way through this video, I applaud you, I appreciate you. Please do leave an emoji of a little alligator in the comments below so I know that you did it. I really do want to thank every single person who participated in the conversation of the last video, even if I didn't get to highlighting your comments on this video. Please do feel free to continue the conversation because, again, like, I think this is super interesting and I think that this is a really good space in order to continue the conversation if you are so inclined. I do hope that you enjoyed this video even with how rambly it was. If you liked this video, please do give it a like. It super duper helps the algorithm, and subscribe for more content that helps the algorithm even more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.